I turn on my
There, now it looks like we don't live in the tundra, kind of. All right.
All
So we're
right, so let's,
recording. Do you want to
yeah.
go? All right, cool. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you guys. I'm Amanda Colosimo.
I'm Jessica Barone, and
Um,
I'm chair of Chem Geo and a geologist.
I'm also a geologist, but I'm not the chair, but I am a member of ChemGeo. We're going to talk to you a little bit today, and you can interrupt us with questions at any time. We're going to talk to you about our GEO 295 course, Field Studies in Geology, which is a course that we've taught for some time. We haven't taught this iteration of it since 2016 because of COVID, and we've been to other spots, but it's a great class. It is a 4 credit class that you can use for SUNY Gen Ed natural science credit if you'd like. It meets starting early to mid March on March 12th, Tuesday nights from 5:30 to 8:50, and runs through final exams week on May 21st. So May 21st, students will take a final exam, and then we will talk about logistics because on June 4th, we will depart as a group together to travel to Nevada, Utah, and Arizona from June 4th through June 12th. And these are some of the parks, but not all, that we will see on the trip.
Just a heads up, we can send you to, we'll grab your emails and we'll send you, we have a handout that has like all of the logistical information and all of the course information, so you don't feel like you have to like be taking notes as we're doing this. We have this all written down for you, so you can kind of pay attention and then just ask questions. But we have a pretty comprehensive handout that we can just email both of you.
Cool. Whoops. So what we're gonna do first is just talk to you about the field component to the course, and then we'll talk about the lecture portion of it as well, just to give you an overview. So on June 4th, we will leave Rochester. The plan is to leave Rochester and fly to Las Vegas, Nevada. From there, we get into a 12-passenger van and maybe more. And we go to the grocery store where we'll buy lunch supplies. Students will have the opportunity to buy lunch supplies or use the restroom or whatever snacks they might want. And lots of bottled water, although we'll encourage you to bring a reusable bottle as well. And then we will drive out of Las Vegas and stay in St. George, Utah for the night. And this is some of the scenery that we'll see from on the way there. And while this looks like fantastic, and it is, it's only just a little hint of what is to come. Do you want to add anything?
I'll do the next one.
Okay.
So then on the second morning, we will drive to Zion National Park, which is not too far from St. George, Utah. And we do a day in the field exploring the geology of Zion. And we'll talk about what a typical day in the field is like coming up a little bit later. This is Zion Canyon, and the place that we are staying is right at the bottom of it. So when we wake up the next morning and go outside, we're basically like somewhere over here at the bottom of these gigantic rock walls. And so we'll be learning how they formed and some of their characteristics and all sorts of interesting geology about Zion.
Yeah, so we'll be hiking through Zion. We'll also probably eat dinner in the lodge that night, and you'll be able to see at night. It's really cool. There will be people who will be climbing. We will not be climbing, but people will be like climbing some of the walls of Zion Canyon, and all you'll see are like flashlights as they kind of scurry up the side of the canyon. It's wild and beautiful. Um, and yeah, so then the next day, we will get up and drive a couple hours to Bryce Canyon National Park. One of the nice things about the parks in this region is that they're only like a couple hours away from each other. So it's just enough time in the van to maybe get a little nap, have some snacks, and relax and chat for a little bit. And then we get to the parks. So we'll get to Bryce Canyon National Park on the 6th. And in Bryce Canyon will be our highest elevation of the trip, a little bit more than 8,000 feet of elevation. We will hike among the pinnacles of Bryce Canyon National Park And you start off at the top of the canyon and we'll hike down a little bit. So you get to be in the pinnacles. You'll see how they form. It's really, really cool. At some of the higher elevations in the park, you'll probably see a little bit of snow, maybe. Not a ton, but a little bit. And it is picturesque to say the least. And then we stay, I'm not sure where we stay that night actually.
Just like a Capitol Reef Resort,
Oh, yes. So
which
our
I don't think we've stayed there before.
Capitol Reef Resort is a new place for us because we've upgraded our hotel stay a little bit. And in addition to hotel rooms, which is what we'll be staying in, they
Oh,
also have teepees and Conestoga wagons that you can rent for the night. But those require a 2-night stay, which is not what we're doing. So we'll stay there. And the next day we'll visit Capitol Reef National Park.
so yeah, so Capitol Reef is probably the least famous of the national parks that we're going to investigate and learn about. And what's nice is that since it's not overly famous, there aren't a lot of people there because Zion and Arches will certainly have some crowds depending on the time of day. And we're getting out west sort of before all the schools are out, so we may be okay in early June. So Capitol Reef is just one of the kind of emptiest, but has some of the most interesting geology, sedimentary rocks that we will see. So we'll spend the day in Capitol Reef, and then we're going to head to a town called Moab, Utah, and stay in Moab for 2 nights. You may have heard of Moab. It's pretty famous little town. We'll be there for 2 nights, and it's just an excellent little place where we'll be at just a Best Western, I think, and then you'll be able to kind of check out the town in the evenings a bit. And then so the next day after we do Capitol Reef, we head to Moab, and then the next day,
It's Arches National Park, which is another pretty busy spot on our trip. Again, hopefully because we're going before school's let out, we should not have too many crowds. We're still pretty early in the season, but Arches National Park is amazing. It is home to almost 70% of all arches on Earth. And we'll hike around there. You'll learn how arches form. None of our hikes are super crazy. We in general will take multiple hikes a day for sure, but none of them are ever longer than a mile or so. I think maybe a mile and a half is the tops. We also plan like water stops, bathroom stops, like stuff like that. We want to make sure everyone stays safe and able to learn on trips as well. We spend 2 nights in Moab, which is the only place that we do spend 2 nights. Moab, as Jessica said, is a great town. Lots of really cool people. It's like the crossroads of Utah. And so it's also home to 2 national parks. So in addition to Arches National Park, the next day we will visit Canyonlands National Park.
and so Canyonlands, this is obviously a photo of Canyonlands. It's under sort of this famous arch called Mesa Arch. That we will hike up to, and we're going to kind of figure out and discuss you can see some of these fractures in the rocks, and so we'll talk about what those fractures or joints are. Canyonlands, as you would imagine, has incredible canyons. You can see them in this photo, and it has some pretty steep drop-offs that we'll all be very aware of as we are traveling, so we won't get too close to the edge. But we have some really, really great examples of canyon formation and the different kinds of erosion that we will study in these sedimentary rocks. And so after Canyonlands, we head to Dead Horse Point, right?
Yeah, I feel like Dead Horse Point is maybe just like a lunch stop after or something, or maybe it'll be an afternoon stop at this point.
Yeah. So this is Dead Horse Point. It looks kind of a lot like the Grand Canyon to the untrained eye, but if you explore and take this course, you will see that it doesn't really look so much like the Grand Canyon because this is a whole lot redder, and not nearly as steep, but a really impressive canyon that has what are called incised meanders. We'll talk about how those form. Um, and so that's just a state park, but we'll spend a little bit of time there. Anything else about Dead Horse Point, Amanda?
Well, we'll tell you why it's called Dead Horse
Oh,
Point while we're there. It's a good
mhm.
story.
Mm-hmm.
but we don't want to give it away. But it's a good
No.
one. So we stay outside of Bluff, Utah that evening, which is very close to the Utah-Arizona border. It is a great place to like sample um, some of the tribal food. It's wonderful, actually. And we'll have dinner one night at the restaurant, and we'll have breakfast one morning at our hotel place, and it's awesome. And from there, it's just a short drive to Monument Valley, Arizona. It's on Navajo land, but right where the Arizona Utah border is found. And we will take a tour of Monument Valley with the Navajo indigenous tribe. We will get in these like off-roading vehicles. It's so fun. And we will bounce around on, I think it's a 17-mile loop, and you'll get out and you'll hear some of the cultural and historical significance of Monument Valley. It's been featured in a lot of old like Western movies, but it's also was featured in Forrest Gump. If you remember when Forrest Gump decided that he was tired of running and he was going to go home, it was right in front of Monument Valley. So that's a fun spot. And it's really an interesting opportunity. This day on the 10th, we really learn a lot about the Navajo Native American tribe, because from Monument Valley, we go to Antelope Canyon, which is possibly the most spectacular spot on a trip of lots of beautiful spots. And so we also go onto Navajo land with a guide, and we get um, the last tour of the day in Antelope Canyon. It's pretty famous because it's like unbelievably beautiful, and we walk along the base of the canyon, and we get the last trip of the day, so no one's rushing us, so we can kind of go at our own pace, and folks can really enjoy learning about how the canyon formed and how it continues to develop over time. It's a great day.
And the last tour of the day also means we don't have groups of people behind us, so you can get some pretty amazing photos of this canyon. It's one of the most, like Amanda said, one of the most remarkable places you could really ever see and be able to walk through. And you can't actually go here without a Navajo guide. Just like Monument Valley, we have Navajo guides, as Amanda said, for both of them because they're on tribal land. So it's a really great opportunity to interact with Navajo and learn a bit of their history. It's pretty cool. So it's not just geology. We do some culture and history as well, especially on this day.
Yeah. So we stay in Page, Arizona that night, and we get up and drive back towards Las Vegas, but we stop first at Grand Canyon National Park.
Oh boy. Yeah, so it turns out that the Grand Canyon is pretty much in between our last sort of night in the field before Vegas and Vegas. So those of you that are taking this class, we actually added the Grand Canyon this year. We didn't used to do it. But we pretty much pass it on the way back to Vegas. And so we're going to spend just a few hours at the Grand Canyon, where we'll learn a bit of the geology, probably maybe do some sketching. There's a really great geology museum there. But it's only going to be a few hours, but it'll be a nice way to sort of introduce yourself to the Grand Canyon. And then we'll keep on our way eventually to Las Vegas for that last night.
And when we get to Las Vegas, we will be staying, I'm not sure you can see my cursor, but
We
we
can.
will be staying there in the Excalibur, which is a castle. You can see some of the turrets over here as well. It's very exciting. So when we, oh no, how do I clear this? Close.
I don't know. What was that?
I got it. I'll figure it out. Oh, they changed the toolbar on me.
I don't even know. I don't know what's
Why did
happening.
they do that? Delete all my drawings. Okay. So sorry. Um, so when we get to Las Vegas, it should be around dinnerish time or so, most likely, maybe a little bit later. And students in general are set free at night. Students, and if you audit the course, you're set free at night. Most places that doesn't allow you a whole lot of freedom. There's only a couple nights that we're staying any place that you could do much at night. And one of them is when we stay in Moab. And the second one is when we stay in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is ridiculous, or like it can be anything you want it to be. And what we want is for you to be ready the next morning when we go on the plane back home. But we're not like, no, there's no bed checks or anything. Students have asked us if there's stuff like that. There's not. You are adults, and the next morning you will get yourself breakfast and be ready to return to Rochester, because on the 12th we hop into a plane and we travel home. So we wanted to give you some of the logistics and then tell you a little bit about what an average day is like, and then we'll pause and see if you have any questions on the field portion of the course before we talk about all the stuff that leads up to that.
So as far as the logistics go here, the cost, so we work with a travel agent on this. MCC requires a travel agent, which is useful mostly because they do a lot of the reservations for the hotels and airfare. So the cost of just the field component is about $28.29 plus whatever fees for the class, registering for the class. And then that also includes most meals. We'll talk a little bit more about that. All of your lodging, your air fare, the van rental, the gas, the entrances to the parks. And we're still actually, the travel agent's going to get back to us on luggage fees. It depends which airline we wind up flying.
So the only thing I wanted to add is that this course will be charged to the spring tuition bill, so that if you're a student and you are taking, like if you're a full-time student, you pay the same amount in tuition if you're taking 12 credit hours or you're taking 18 credit hours. So hopefully, so this avoids you having to pay tuition for like a summer session. And on your spring transcript, you would just get an incomplete for this course until the field course was completed, and then the grade would be put in when we get back. So what this price affords you is triple or quad occupancy in hotel rooms. It's not abnormal for people to want their own bed on a trip, especially our non-traditional students, or if you're traveling with people that you don't know at all. Sometimes folks will want their own bed, and then you work with the travel agents to make sure that that's, number one, possible. It should be, but sometimes we stay in towns that are so small that we like pretty much rent out the town. So they'll get you a price for that, so you can work with our travel agent on that. Most of your breakfasts are covered. So there are breakfasts that are not covered on our travel days, like when we're going there and back, as well as like just a couple days that we don't have breakfast included with our hotel stay. Lunches on days that we're traveling and we're in the airport, you grab lunches from, and we'll talk more about lunches in a bit. You grab lunch from somewhere in the airport, and dinners are not included. You can be flexible with yourself. Lots of students, or just people who don't like big breakfasts in the morning, will just pack like granola bars or protein bars or whatever, and use that for their breakfast. And as you know, when you go out to dinner, you can spend as much money as you want to spend or as little as you want to spend. It's not really until we're in Vegas and maybe Moab that if you wanted to spend a lot on dinner that you even could. Like Torrey, Utah does not have a burgeoning restaurant industry, so you're kind of limited in a lot of these places anyway.
All right. So a typical day in the field. So we tend to wake up and we are usually packed and in the van ready to go. 7:30 is on the earlier end of it, but some days, depending how far we have to drive and what the plans are for the day, the lodging departure time is 7:30 to 8. If I imagine that'll probably be about the latest time we would leave, maybe 8:15 on a sleep in sort of day. But so we are up and ready to go. And so you'll see a note here. The night before, we will make sure we let all the students know when we are leaving. And that basically means when you'll be at the van with your luggage, packing up your stuff into the van. We take turns loading the van. Sometimes people just like to do it. I don't know. I don't really do it because that's I don't want to hurt myself. Anyway, so the students oftentimes they'll be the ones that pack up the vans, but you want to be there when we say to be there, so then we can get on the road when we need to be. So we'd really like, everyone to understand there's a reason for these early exits from the lodging because we have a lot to do, a lot to learn, a lot to see.
Yeah, we want you to get the most for your money, and we also want to get out there before it gets too hot.
Yes, that's going to be an interesting thing because we've never done this in June before, so it's going to be a bit toasty, which we'll get to that in a second. So by those departure times, if you choose to eat breakfast, you should have eaten by then. If you choose not to eat breakfast, that is your choice. And then we travel to the field site and we'll talk a little about what it's like there. But generally, we get to the different field sites. Colosimo or I will sort of provide a short lecture telling you about the geology of the place and what sort of project and data you're collecting there. The weather, I would say it could range. These might be extreme. I don't know if it'll get down to 30, but honestly, in Bryce it could, or at night. And then 90, I would say sure, because it's pretty hot in the desert, even by early June. So, these are the cases where you dress in layers so you can take stuff off and put stuff on depending on the temperature change. Let's see. So what we do for lunch, so like Amanda said, when we land in Vegas, we go grocery shopping. And a big part of the grocery shopping is the group grocery shopping. We buy lunch for the group because at lunchtime, we don't really know where we'll be. We may be like in a park somewhere, which is likely. And there aren't really food places to eat. So we always have lunch with us. So no matter where we are, if we're running late or early or whatever, we can stop, pull over, find a bench or a table, a picnic table, and have lunch. And so lunch is PB&J because it doesn't have to be refrigerated. Now, we sort of stick with that for everyone, except if someone is allergic to peanut butter or jelly, or has an extreme hatred or disgust for it, we may, purchase something else as far as the group lunch goes. And then people, when we stop at the grocery store, can buy like little things for themselves if they want. What else about lunch? I feel like you generally have more to. We buy.
So yeah, just that people. I think you did a delightful job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you already pay for the peanut butter and jelly. So like that is part of your trip fee. That doesn't stop you for when we're stopping at a gas station. There have been many gas station hot dogs consumed on these sorts of trips, and taquitos and all sorts of things that are inadvisable to eat. But nevertheless, you've already paid for the peanut butter and jelly. Or so I am the person who violently dislikes peanut butter. So I usually end up getting some cashew butter or almond butter, and I'm flexible. Other years I have done little cans of tuna, and then I never ate tuna again for like 3 years. So 9 days is a long time to eat anything.
Yeah, and to lunch, like for lunch, we also buy like granola bars and fruit for sure. There's always like apples and oranges and granola bars and chips, different kinds of chips and stuff that goes along with lunch. And Amanda mentioned water earlier. We're definitely going to ask that everyone have a water bottle that they can refill. Jeez. But we'll have like spare emergency water also. But we should all be filling our water bottles, and most of the parks have that available. So that's the lunch scoop. And then you do field notes, complete field assignments. I don't know. Oh,
I have a field notebook too.
This is being recorded. So one of the things that you guys are going to get is a field notebook. Ooh. And this is like a huge part of the course where you're going to be writing all, oh, mine maybe is a little frightening to look at. But every student will get a field notebook, and this is where you're basically going to collect all your field notes and work on your projects. And that's included in the fee for the course. And then you can write in the rain. I don't imagine we'll see much rain on this trip, but who knows? We've seen snow, we've seen rain, we've seen sunny days, etc.
You thought they'd never end.
It's true.
I'm sorry. It was just right there.
And the days are long. Yeah. 10 to 12-hour days, I would say for sure.
We want you to get the most for your money while we're out there.
Yeah, so before we talk about like the on-campus component, does anyone have any questions about what we've talked about so far? No?
All right. Well, if you come up with some, please ask while we're talking about the lecture component. So this is a lecture lab course, and 40% of your grade for the course, if you're taking the course for a grade, will come from before when we go in the field. From our lecture portion, those 10 weeks that you're in class on Tuesday nights. So during that time, you'll have weekly quizzes on material that we learned the week before. We will have a midterm and a final. There'll be many in-class assignments. Jessica and I switch up class all the time. There's lots of like, learn something, do something, learn something, do something. We rarely give homework assignments, but sometimes, well, we like to reserve the right to. By the way, this is a picture from Capitol Reef National Park. This is petroglyphs. This is like rock art from like the 1200s. It's pretty crazy. So 60% of your grade then comes from field work. So that would be the completion of a field notebook, and Jessica and I collect field notes every couple days, and we grade them and return them to you with feedback. And by the end of this trip, honestly, if you are a person who's really interested in pursuing any of the field sciences, field notebooks and taking good field notes are like essential skills. And I can't even tell you how many students have told us that they are so prepared when they transfer to four-year schools and graduate schools, even because of the skills that they learn in this class. We also don't have a ton of field projects in this class, but people will collect data during the day, and then at night they'll work on some field projects as well.
Some of the topics that we will cover in the lecture portion and then actually apply and discuss further and kind of see in the field are topics like regional geology, lots of weathering and erosion, which doesn't sound that thrilling, but when you see how weathering and erosion basically shape the national parks that we're going to be in, it becomes a whole lot more interesting. Volcanism, sedimentary environments, and mountain building events. So we will cover a whole lot of geology in this course, first in the lecture, and then we'll get to sort of bring what we learned in lecture out into the field with us.
Yeah, and the lecture topics are customized to what you will be seeing out in the field. Are there any questions about the lecture portion of the class?
Or any of it.
Yeah, any of it, really.
We have, like I said, we have a handout, and we'll send it to each of you. So maybe everyone could throw their emails in the chat. So then we can grab them and send this to you. There's information on sort of the payment schedule. Again, it's based on working with the travel agent, where there are basically 4 payments over the next, well, through May 1st. And to register for the course at MCC, you can't register until sort of you've had a conversation with Amanda or myself, and we have you registered. Like, you can't go in and register yourself because we have to approve all the registrations for this course. And then once you've done that, we can send you information on a website where you have to register through the travel agency with your travel information, like for airfare and stuff like that.
Trying to think of
What else? Anything else you can think of?
Oh, if you are a student who's interested in auditing, so the difference between these auditing and taking the class normally, is that if you're auditing, you're not taking the class for a grade. And we've had people do this for as long as we've run this class. And a lot of times those participants have said that they get a lot more out of the field component by making sure that they're attending the lecture, or at least most of the lecture components. And if you're auditing a class, you can do assignments, you can take exams if you want. Like, you don't get a grade, but like you can if you like. You also, same thing with the field notebook, you're not required to do it, but it's kind of fun to do. And the but we also have the option, obviously, for you guys to take the course for a grade as well.
Yeah. Oh, and the payments this year can be made on credit cards, which is nice, because in the past it was cash or check, and that was not super convenient. Yeah.
There was and our travel agent has it broken down into 4 payments, but they're super willing to work with people. So if you'd rather have more payments of smaller amounts, or you can put some down now and then some down later, they're super flexible and have been about that stuff. Also, travel insurance is also built into the cost of the trip. So if something happens and you're unable to go, or something happens while we're there, there's an external third party travel insurance company that we work with. I think it's called TravelX.